Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Somewhere in the Skies. I am your host, Ryan Sprague, and today we have a very interesting guest for you guys. You may have seen him on Reality Check with Ross Coulthard coming forward for the very first time about anomalous activity that happened over a highly sensitive military installation. We will be speaking with Yoshua Shelton. Yoshua is a former U.S. Air Force nuclear security specialist who served at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, one of the most heavily guarded and secretive military installations in the United States. During his tenure, he was assigned to Area 2, a high security sector responsible for the storage and protection of nuclear weapons. His duties placed him in direct proximity to restricted facilities and sensitive operations, giving him a rare first-hand perspective on base security, classified protocols, and even anomalous events. So today we will be talking to Joshua all about that anomalous activity that happened over the base. Everything from UAP sightings to a possible UAP crash in the desert, all the way up to the base possibly being infiltrated by shadow entities. Yeah, you heard that right. This gets pretty deep, pretty profound, pretty emotional. As you will see, these events have dramatically affected Joshua in many ways. So we will break down each event for you guys tonight and really get to the heart of these mysteries and how they affect someone coming out on the other side of this, who is still struggling to find answers to what happened there and empowering more military witnesses to come forward in the future with UAP activity and highly anomalous things happening over our most sensitive military installations. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and I hope you'll take just a few minutes to rate and review Somewhere in the Skies on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Your ratings and reviews go a very long way and truly help us get discovered and find new listeners. So head on over to Apple and Spotify. Do that for me. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave a comment below, hit notifications, all that YouTube stuff. I cannot thank you guys enough. I really hope you enjoy this interview with Yoshua Shelton. And remember, keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies.
While our government's official position is not to speculate on this subject, we can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
I'm Ryan Sprague, and you are now somewhere in the skies. Joshua, thank you so much for joining me today on Somewhere in the Skies.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Now, for a lot of our audience, myself included, we first saw you come forward in an interview on Reality Check with Ross Coulthard over on News Nation. And this is an age, man, where us in the UFO field, we are just having the time of our lives with all of these military whistleblowers coming forward and witnesses and congressional UFO hearings. And it's great. Like, it's so cool to boost the credibility of a topic that has been ridiculed and stigmatized for so long that I've been studying for more than half my life. But what I think gets lost a lot of the times when military witnesses come forward is the person, you, how these things have affected you, and what you think they may be. And you do have many stories that we're gonna talk about tonight that have happened to you in your military service. But my first question for you is for any witness, actually, when it comes to UFOs, is the why. Why do you think it was important for you to come forward with these very different phenomenological things that have happened to you. Yeah, maybe start with that if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm glad because I said this at the end of the Ross Coulthard interview, and I kind of wanted something up front because I feel like it's really important to say. I I told Ross when we were talking before we recorded that I kind of wanted people to know that the reason why I came forward is not because I'm interested in disclosure. I'm honestly not. I The government has made its bed. It's refusing to disclose. It's fighting, tooth and nail. I'd like to think that there's a good reason for that. Maybe I'm an optimist. I don't know. But to me, disclosure is irrelevant. The reason why I came forward and why I've been very vocal in my own private life about this, as my friends know, um, we have, like I said on the Coulthard interview, we've got kids in their bedrooms seeing things that terrify them. We've got people running into things that are outside of their established paradigm, and they don't really have anyone to turn to process these experiences, to share these experiences. And on top of that, like we have a crisis of bias within our academia to where it's not that the data isn't good, it's that we don't like how the data makes us feel, or we don't
Mm.
like the implications, so we reject it outright. And I think that's really holding us back from kind of understanding the UAP phenomenon. And who knows what else we're kind of blind to discovering because of this inherent, deeply entrenched bias against anything that's not naturalistic or reproducible. So that's kind of why I came forward. Is I really want to change the conversation. Like I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I can't figure out what UAP is. I can't gather, data on it. That's somebody else's job. But I can hopefully change the conversation and make people that have had experiences feel safe in sharing those experiences, and maybe reshape this ridicule culture so that other people who are qualified to study the phenomenon feel comfortable talking about it without being ridiculed. That's what's important to me. People are important to me.
I love that, man. I mean, you're speaking my language. I've written 2 books here that are just people's UFO accounts, and the reason I do that is to show that there is a human behind every UFO event. Without them, we would not have any data to
Hmm.
report or to study.
Yeah.
So I think that is immensely important, especially the aftermath of an event, you know?
Yeah.
We were talking off air, we're both artists, and these things can often affect your creativity. I know people who were not artistic in any way, shape, or form, and after a UFO event in their life, start painting geometric, you know,
Wow.
portraits of things and picking up a guitar and playing songs and they've never
Wow.
played the guitar. Like it's crazy, man. I'm getting ahead of myself though. I love that. I love that. You're I think what you're doing is very important. It empowers more people to come forward inside or outside of the military. But let's rewind a little bit.
Hmm?
Uh can you sort of just paint the picture for us of who you are and kind of what led you to join the Air Force? And we'll get more into the specifics area too. But yeah, when was that decision that you wanted to go into the Air Force and whatnot? Give us that origin story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no worries. So my family's military, always been military, and the Air Force was kind of an accident. I uh, I originally went to Army Recruiter, and I scored a 96 on the ASVAB, I think, and I think it's out of 100 if I remember right. I can't remember. And the Army Recruiter was like, "Well, you can have any job you want, basically." So
Wow.
connected me with a counterintelligence guy, and he was telling me about what he does, and I loved it. It was a $40,000 sign-on bonus and all this. And then I was on that track, but then my mom at one point was like, "Well, the Air Force is, they treat their people better. They have better facilities. So why don't you go talk to the Air Force recruiter?" I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." So I go and they show me this high-speed video of people like jumping out of helicopters and riding ATVs to the woods. And I was like, "Oh man, idiot 18-year-old me is like, oh, I want to do that." So I gave up a 4-year, $40,000 contract for a 6-year, $3,000 contract to work with nuclear weapons, basically. Um,
Wow.
Not
That's
the best move.
quite a sacrifice there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we all sort of make these decisions, and they ultimately lead to where we are today. You and I having
Yep.
this conversation would be one of them, which is crazy. It's crazy. Well, what kind of led you to Nellis to Area 2? Like, how did that come about? You talked on the Ross Coulthard interview about the personnel reliability program, which I'd love
Mhm.
if you could break that down a little bit for us. But what was it like getting sent to one of the most highly sensitive areas? It's a huge mythological mecca for us in the UFO world for obvious reasons. But yeah, tell us a little about Area 2, what you can talk about if you don't mind.
It's funny because, like, I mean, obviously, like anyone, I knew about the UFO phenomenon a bit, but it wasn't, central in my life or anything. So I actually didn't know how like important Nellis was to the whole field. I didn't know that it was like a hot spot for UFO activity or anything like that. Um, I did. I got my orders in tech school. My orders were delayed a little bit. I guess because of the PRP clearances. And basically, PRP is like it's meant to ensure that like the highest quality, most reliable people are working with nuclear weapons and nuclear components, command and control systems, stuff like that. It's really like if you have a cold, you have to report it to your flight sergeant. I remember I had a kidney stone one time, and I was away from the base. I had to take an ambulance, and I told him I was like, "You can't take me to civilian hospital. You have to take me on base." So they took me on base, and when when they brought me in, I remember seeing. I think it was someone from OSI who like came and was grilling the ambulance drivers and like, what did he say when you gave him painkillers? Did he say anything about where he works or anything like that? I always felt sorry for him, but that's kind of like PRP is supposed to be like, I remember if you got hypnotized, like we couldn't go to certain shows on the strip, Las Vegas Strip, because they
Right.
would hypnotize audience members. So like you couldn't be hypnotized, which I guess speaks to like the credibility that hypnosis is pretty important. I don't know.
Real? Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly, possibly.
At least the
Interesting.
military thought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't know. Like, I mean, I had no idea Nellis was this. When I did get to, so when I got to Nellis before I got assigned to the area, or where I was waiting to get to the area, you're kind of just hanging out with like the main base troops who work on main base. They work law enforcement and like flight line security stuff. And I heard like a few things about the area, but like nothing major or anything. And then that first night was kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, this place is weird.
Okay. Interesting. Now, okay. Um, and we'll get to the first experience. So
Mm.
what was your actual position there? Like how many people were under your, I guess, command, or who did you kind of take orders from? Like, I guess kind of paint the picture of what a day would look like in your boots while you were in service there.
So when I first got there, I was just a regular patrolman. Um, you have to certify for each position, and it's the first position you certify for is a patrolman. And technically, you don't have to certify for anything else, but it's kind of frowned upon. Like you want to advance your career, you want to advance your qualifications, and your supervisor wants to look good, so he makes you do stuff so he looks good. So I was initially a patrolman, and then after I think maybe 2 years or so, I got my entry control certification, which was basically like manning the entry control point. You're responsible for letting people in and out. It's a pretty high responsibility job. Like you literally dictate who's in and who's out. And then shortly after that, I can't remember how long after that. I got my certification for a central security controller, which basically you're overseeing operations for the entire area. You're running the radio net during incidents. You're running the response to incidents. You're kind of quarterbacking from the flight's chief, who's like technically the on-scene commander, or the actual on-scene commander. The flight chief's not on scene. I would say I've done a lot of like high stress stuff in my life, And being a central security controller, doing either like we had NSI inspections, nuclear surety inspections, where the DoD would send an inspector general team to test the facility and make sure it's still certified to hold nukes, or doing like real world security events. A central security controller was like the most stressful job I have ever had. People couldn't do it. Like people broke down. They could not do it. But yeah, those were the certifications I got. And then I also, I was a fire team leader. I was a flight trainer for CQB close quarters battle. It wasn't, that was because of my expertise and because of my talent, I guess, in teaching and training. I got those positions. I helped come up with sort of like how we would respond to incidents like on the ground and stuff. I guess I kind of did it all. The only position I guess that I didn't get was the alarm operator, to where there was two alarm operators, one that oversaw the perimeter and then one that oversaw the interior alarms for like the actual structures and stuff. That was
Okay.
pretty sure that was the only position I didn't do. Yeah.
Wow. Utility man. I love it. I love it. A little bit of everything. That's crazy, man. I can't even imagine how stressful just the day to day would be. Well, to kind of touch on that, we're talking about guarding nuclear weapons, like the most dangerous thing in the existence of creation. Um, what was it like at first? Like, I know you kind of talked about this with Ross, and like, I
Mhm.
know, as time goes on, kind of it can change a little bit, but what was it like knowing that what you are guarding essentially could, I hate to say it, but could destroy the world?
Yeah. It was pretty overwhelming at first. Like it was I remember the first time that I saw a live nuke, I was like, oh man, like that's a moment in your life you don't forget when you see that thing. And it's so much smaller than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
But like, yeah, it's pretty overwhelming at first. But then I don't know, the human brain has this weird ability to like normalize anything. So like after a while, you're like, you know, it's just nukes. They're not going off. So, and it's our job to make sure they don't go off. So it
Right.
gets boring after a while. I mean, we're out there for
Wow.
12 hours. A good day is when it's a boring day. You don't want an exciting day. That's a very bad day. So most of the time, it's just boring, to be honest with you.
I can imagine, just a lot of, you know, almost waiting for something to happen, but not wanting something
Hmm.
to happen. It's the curse of, I guess, kind of that job. Okay. So let's get to, I guess, what you would consider maybe your first sort of strange or anomalous experience. I mean, we're not talking 2 weeks in, a month in, a year into your position, right? We're talking like straight out the gate, right?
Hours.
Okay. Wow, man. If you don't mind, could you share that with us?
Yeah. So when you first get on flight, you're not certified to be on patrol. You have to wait for your security clearance to kind of, or your PRP clearance to kind of finish. And then you're allowed on patrol as an alpha. And during that time, you're studying and training to get your certification to be an actual patrol leader. So we were, me and I think it was two other, yeah, it was two other new troops. We were in kind of the break room inside the building that houses the central security control. And one of the flight sergeants came in and was like, "Hey, I'm going to take you on a tour of the area so you kind of see the place. This is where you'll be working." So we hopped in the Humvee, we took off, and we went to this place that had like a bit of high ground to where you could oversee a lot of the area. And as we got there, or before we got there, I think it was BIS 1 was the perimeter alarm operator, but the perimeter alarm operator called to the radio and called in an alarm activation in it was Whiskey 8's area, which is a patrol, perimeter patrol, and the alarm was on the fence line. And the flight sergeant it was a junior flight sergeant that was driving us around. He was like, "Oh, this is great. Um, where we're going, you'll be able to see them respond to the alarm, so you'll have an idea of how you do like a fence line walkthrough and stuff." So we pull up maybe like 30 seconds after the alarm's been called, And as soon as we got out of the Humvee, I remember the flight sergeant was like, "What the shit is that?" Like that was like the first thing he said. And because I had no idea where the alarm would be. I didn't know, the marker sensor zones, they're numbered. I have no idea where it was at, but I just followed his eye line. And right there on the fence line, it's a triple fence, and the innermost fence line right above, there's a sensor that runs along the top of the fence. Right above that was this like oversized beach ball sized glowing object. It was, I say object because I got the impression that it was a physical object. It wasn't like a orb of light.
Hmm.
Um, it was, yeah, it was about the size of an oversized beach ball, and it was just right over the fence line. From Obviously, I couldn't measure size very well from where I was at because of the distance. I was about 250, 300 meters away. But from knowing the fence line as very intimately as I got to know it over the next 6 years, I could say that the object was about 4 to 5 feet, maybe, in
Okay.
diameter. Um, and what was strange about it was that it was glowing white, but it wasn't casting light around it the way that you would expect it to. The fence line was lit up; it's completely lit up, but it's like how bright the object was. It just seems like it should have been illuminating a lot
Right.
of the desert around it, and it wasn't. So we watched it, and then we saw Whiskey 8's truck pulling up, and they spotted the object, called it in over the radio, and they were still kind of roll. They had slowed down significantly, and they were still rolling up. And when they crossed some invisible line, the object started moving, and it moved at a speed that perfectly matched the truck. Um, I think if I remember right, they were maybe like 30, 40 meters away from the object. And as the truck moved, even when they sped up to try to catch it, the object maintained that exact same distance. Like it,
Oh, wow.
uh, yeah, it was eerie the way that it perfectly matched the truck. And it stayed on that interior fence line, the entire, like right above it the entire time, almost like it was riding it on rails.
Hmm.
Um, it turned into a high speed chase with Whiskey 8 chasing it, and then the mobile fire team joined it, and then another patrol joined in. So it was three patrols chasing this thing, and they got to a spot along the fence line where the fence line curved to the right, and instead of following the fence like it had, it shot off to the left and it went out into the desert. Um, and what was strange about that again was that it was illuminating the ground a bit, but as bright as it was, it didn't make sense. It should have been illuminating so much more because it was really
Hmm.
bright. And then yeah, we watched it because we had high ground, so we could watch it go out into the desert, and then it just kind of faded into the darkness.
Wow. Now, did anyone seem surprised by this, or was this like did it seem like some of the other people there had experienced this sort of stuff before, or was this completely new? Obviously to you, but I mean, what was like the protocol, or did was it just like, oh, that was weird? Like I guess, on with our day. What was like the response, Joshua?
So from the flight sergeant that was showing us around, he hadn't been there too long himself either. I think maybe he'd been there like 6 or 8 months. Um, he was definitely surprised. I didn't really know the rest of flight well enough to kind of get into a conversation about it or anything. Um, and by the time that I kind of like integrated it into flight, like enough time had passed that we kind of just didn't. I don't know. For some reason, we didn't really talk about it. We didn't really bring it up. But I got the sense overall, even through other stuff that happened, that it was just sort of like, okay, well, that was weird, but it didn't damage the fence. It didn't penetrate one of the bunkers. Like a lot of the response to everything that happened was, did it affect security operations? If not, then we have to go on with our day.
Huh. Interesting. Oh yeah, I mean, and these things will escalate as we'll get to for sure. Wow, that's fascinating. The self-containment of light, or
Mhm.
it really captures my my attention there, that it was self-illuminating and not really
Yeah.
casting light, like a condensed energy. Like, do you have any, I guess, theories on what that could be, or are you still kind of racking your brain on that one?
I mean, whatever it is, it's not following normal physics.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought about, especially after the incident with the three lights, that I'm sure we'll talk about later, I was wondering, like, okay, is this really a physical object or is this an image being projected?
Mm,
Like, could it be that, especially with like the three light incident, could it be that maybe we didn't see the lights because we were on the same plane as a one-dimensional image being projected that everybody behind us could see? And if this was like the same thing with this ball of light, if it was, you know, a projection, it would make sense why it's not illuminating. Um, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't feel that's a good explanation, but whatever it is, it wasn't obeying normal physics, that's for sure. And
mm,
even Ross brought up, like, I've talked with other military witnesses, and there seems to be an element of like manipulation of your perception. And I think that's definitely true. Like, whatever it
absolutely.
is, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I've heard from so many witnesses, military and civilian, of this perception being altered. I mean,
Yeah.
I always go back to a case. I've brought it up a million times on my show here, but a mother and daughter in Michigan were looking at the same black triangle UFO over their home. Uh, However, the mother saw it as this burning white triangle, and it was silent, and she felt euphoric looking at the thing. And she turns to her daughter and she's like, "Oh my god, it's brilliant, it's burning white, it's silent, this is amazing, what do you think?" And the daughter's on the ground holding her, like, hands on her ears, saying how unbearably loud this black
Wow.
triangle is. So what is going on, man, with like these
Mm.
perceptions of different things? It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You mentioned the three lights. Now, was that the next experience, or should we maybe go in chronological order? What do you think?
No, I guess it'd be easier to go chronological, 'cause that was towards the
Okay,
end of my enlistment.
okay, got it. So, okay, so that happened. Your first welcome to the base,
Yeah.
Joshua.
Yeah.
That is crazy, man. What was the next experience, if you don't mind sharing?
Um, so there were kind of, I mean, minor things, I guess. Like I think I told Ross, like, this, it wasn't infrequent that things would happen. It was maybe once a month, like something would happen. Um, but we all had night vision, and with the night vision, you could just lay on top of the Humvee and look up at the night sky, and you would see objects that were clearly not satellites because they would maneuver. Um, I never saw anything like, I guess what's described as the, what is it, the three observables or something like that.
I think they're up to 6 now, but your guess
Six.
is as good as mine, man. Yeah, I think there's, like, 5 officially
Mm.
according to the Pentagon program, but, yeah, all of them, transmedium, anti-grav, you name it. They're all part of the observables. I'd have to
Mm.
go back and study them.
I never saw like, instant acceleration, but
That's
definitely
what
you would see stuff that would make these turns that's like, satellite can't do that. And pretty confident aircraft can't do that with like tearing its wings off. Um, but again, it was super high up in the sky and it's not interfering with security operations. We would also see with the thermals, we had thermal imagers, and then at one point we got I think it was called a Wisty. Is a very powerful thermal camera that was mounted on a mount, like this really tall pole, and you could move it and see 360 around. The resolution was incredible, and once we got that, we really started seeing stuff. there was a mountain that we were next to, and we used to call it Sunrise Mountain. I'm not sure what the actual official name was, but at the top of the mountain, you would constantly catch on the thermal camera like something in the sky right at the top of the mountain that would be moving around, and it was like a heat signature. But then when you look at it with your bare eyes, there was nothing up there. When you look at your night vision, there was nothing up there. But you would frequently see like something large that was giving off heat that was moving above that. Um, I got the feeling that like there's stuff going on that we can't see. Like there's things happening that we're not aware of. But going back to like chronologically, one thing I didn't tell Ross about, this was maybe a year in. I was dating a girl that was going to University of Las Vegas, Nevada. And at the end of the semester, I guess they had like teachers from other electives come in and sort of pitch their class. And this historian comes in, and he talks a little bit about Nellis, and he asks like, "Oh, is anybody here from Nellis?" Because some of us would take classes and go down take classes there. Nobody raised their hand, and he's like, "Oh, does anybody have family that is at Nellis or anything?" And then my girlfriend raised her hand. She's like, "Oh, my boyfriend works up there." And he's like, "Oh, what's he do? Where does he work?" And she's like, "Oh, he works. I'm not sure. It's area something that he works at." And she told me that like he got really angry, like really serious and really angry. And he goes like, "Is it area 2?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think that's it." He doesn't really talk about it much and stuff. And like his demeanor completely changed. Like I remember when she was telling me, like she was a little shaken about it. Um, but then he's like, "Oh, did he tell you about what they have underground there?" And like he starts to describe, so I guess this guy grew up in Vegas,
Okay.
and when he was a kid, Vegas was like a road with like some, a few buildings and stuff. It wasn't built up at all, and they would have everyone from Nellis come into town, hit the bars and stuff. And according to him, there was when he was, I think, if I remember right, he said that he was like a teenager when it happened. But something happened up at Nellis. They had troops and 5 tons trucks come in and go up to Nellis, and nobody from Nellis was allowed to come into town. So all the business owners were complaining about it because they relied on, the soldiers and airmen and stuff. But he said that the base was closed down for a few days, and that rumors were circulating that like there had been some accident in an underground lab somewhere in Nellis. And then shortly after that, ranchers in the local area were complaining that their livestock was being killed off by something. Like they were seeing something strange that was killing off their livestock. So after a bit, the base reopens, and then according to him, the rumors leaked out that there was an accident in some underground lab, and some things got loose, and they went out and they were attacking wildlife or livestock and stuff. Um, and yeah, he was apparently like really serious and a little angry at her because I worked at the area. But when she told me exactly what he said, I was a little bit, because he was describing some things inside of the area that I was like, wait, how could he know about that? Like how
You
could he
shouldn't have
know
known that.
about this
Yeah.
structure? How could he know about this thing? And he did. So he said that apparently in response to this accident, they had sealed off the underground lab, and they had filled in an elevator shaft with concrete to seal it off and whatever other entrance and stuff. And when she told me that he said that, I was a little taken aback because there is a building. I'm assuming it's still standing, but when I was there was a building right next to where we housed our central security control. And this building was right across from the entry control point. So once upon a time, you would walk in and you could walk right into this building. And we used it for storage because the inside was completely empty. You would walk in and there was a hallway leading to this big room. And then on either side were like what must have been offices. But that was all cleared out, and then the big room was empty of stuff. So we would use it for storage. We would store, our water, like for the big water coolers. We would put stuff in there. And in the center of that large room that the short hallway led to, it was a concrete floor, and then there was a big giant square right in the middle of the room where the concrete was a different color. So when she told me that about them filling in this elevator shaft and some other details that he had said that I knew for a fact, like things that did exist in the area, it really got me thinking. So I don't know. I know that there was underground parts there that we did not have access to. But I can't verify this guy's story or not, but he seemed very convinced of it. And again, he had details that unless he knew someone that worked security there and that told him these details, I don't see how you could possibly know about these small things that he mentioned that we had in
Right.
the area.
That's there's no coincidences, man. In this line of work, there are no coincidences. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It wow, okay, okay. That's an exclusive, guys, on Somewhere in the Skies. You did not hear that with Ross Coulthard, so thank you, Joshua.
Mhm.
Appreciate that, man. So what was the next, I guess, big experience that really stuck with you that happened, and how far apart was it from your first experience?
Um, I think it was right around the time when this happened with my girlfriend at UNLV. I was on an exterior patrol. So we had most of our patrols were on the interior, and then we had 3 that were on the exterior to respond to, people getting too close, things like that. And I was on the exterior patrol, and we were on top of this area that we called the Bluffs. Um, and they overlooked the area and kind of like everything around it. So it was a good place to kind of look, keep an eye out and stuff. And it was the 2 of the exterior patrols were rendezvous together, and we were just chit chatting, just wasting time. And there was this, I looked out into the desert, and I saw this figure kind of down the bluffs from us. And it was just a shadowy figure. Like you couldn't tell any details because it was kind of far away. So I can't say that it was like a shadow figure. It could have been a person, but they were so far that like, you could see anything. And I saw it, and I pointed it out to the other 3 patrolmen. And I guess once like it realized that we had spotted it, it must have known that we had spotted it, but it seemed to turn and start running. And
Mhm.
so we start running after it because whoever this is, they are really close to the fence line. So this isn't an accident. They know what's here, and they know exactly what they're doing if they're getting that
Yeah,
close. And we had a constant concern of like foreign intelligence, foreign special forces, like doing, reconnoitering the area, things like that. So there was a real concern about people getting close for bad intentions. So we chased this figure down along the bluffs. And what was impressive about it was that the top of the bluffs had a bunch of like rocks, like decent sized rocks. And I mean, if you were to run at a full sprint, you would probably snap your ankle. Like we couldn't run at a full sprint, but this figure was just booking it, like just running without care. Like it seemed to not care about like the state of the ground. It had no concern for its safety. It kind of left us behind a little bit, but we got to a part where the bluffs ended, and then there was a big open area directly on the other side of the bluffs. So we got to the edge of the bluffs, and then we pulled out like our night vision and stuff because the big open area, there's nowhere to hide. So we know that anyone that we've chased this far, they should be, we should be able to see them. Like we weren't that far behind them. But we looked and nothing. Like we couldn't see anyone, couldn't see a trace of it. We didn't have the handheld thermals on the exterior patrols. Um, they probably didn't trust us with them out there because we'd break them. But yeah, we couldn't see anything. So we called main base, and they sent their canine patrol, and we stayed put to make sure that like, hey, if this person is ducking behind a rock or in a crevice that we can't quite see, he's not going to get up and leave, So we stayed watching. Main base sent a canine patrol up, and then the canine started doing a sweep of the area. And the dog handler told us later that the dog got a hit like several different times, like a good solid hit, but it always lost it. Like it would start following the scent, and then it would lose it.
Oh,
And the
weird.
dog was visibly frustrated, like afterwards, like because these dogs are trained to, when they get a hit, they go. Um, this specific dog actually put down a prison riot in Iraq by himself. This was a badass dog. So
Whoa.
he was really frustrated when like he kept getting these hits, but he couldn't track like whatever was giving that scent off. Um, yeah, I mean, we did a foot sweep. The dog, swept and nothing. Couldn't find a sign of anybody. No disturbance on the ground of like, maybe I don't know, hiding under something. Nothing.
Interesting. Now, and you had mentioned now this was not inside your perimeter. Is that why, or
It
was
was
that
outside
inside the
the
perimeter?
area. It
Okay,
was
so that's why
outside the area. Yeah.
that the alarms wouldn't have gone off or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So a situation like that where something just is close, do you have to like make a report on something like that, or is that kind of a
Mhm.
decision you all come together and be like, nah, I don't think it's worked. Like, how does that work?
No, we did. We wrote statements about what happened, and
Okay.
our colonel actually did come in to talk to us and to talk to me specifically because I was the first one to see the individual, and he kind of asked, about the incident, what happened and stuff. And this was actually probably the most interest I ever saw from leadership uh, about something strange happening.
Hmm,
So it kind of set a tone that I was surprised wasn't followed later. Like we didn't get the same amount of interest later when things happened.
okay.
But yeah, we did chat about it. Wrote statements. What happened after that? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yep. All right. That's just as frustrating as the dog got. Um,
Yeah.
Interesting, man. And when you said like something would have like tripped and fallen if it was like going as fast as it was, like that makes me feel like I'm like envisioning this thing like gliding or like levitating above the rocks or so. I don't know. That's just my
I'm pretty
imagination going, but I
confident.
don't know. I don't know.
I'm pretty confident it was actually running because I mean, when someone runs, they
Yeah.
bob up and down. It was definitely bobbing up and down. Like the
Okay.
individual was definitely bobbing up and down. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I thought initially like the same thing, but no, it felt like it was Usain Bolt with no care
Wow.
if he snapped an ankle, you know. And I mean,
Oh,
it was rough terrain. I don't realistically see how somebody was running up there as fast as they were running without tripping, falling, breaking an ankle. Like I don't know,
crazy.
maybe they were really lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, let's move to the next one. I know, like I said, these things sort of escalate, and yeah. What was the next experience that you remember?
So I'm trying to remember the actual timing of all these things. So they might not be in perfect order, but
No worries.
there was I think it was my second year. It was between my second and third year. We there was another sighting of a shadow person, shadow figure, I guess. Um, we we had the bunkers where the weapons were kept at, and then we had these plants where they would do maintenance on them. They would pull them out of the bunkers, put them in the plants and do 806 MUNs, I think. I think it was 806. The munitions people would do maintenance on the weapons. So we were practicing an assault on the plants under, a scenario that like terrorists had come in and, gotten access to them or whatever. And afterwards, when our flight chief called exercise terminate, we kind of fell into formation outside the plants, and we were waiting for our flight chief to come debrief us, talk about what we did right, what we did wrong. And we knew that he was out in the desert a bit where he could kind of like overwatch everything on the outside. So we were just information, smoking and joking, waiting. And then directly in front of us was a row of small buildings that I guess way back in the day, like the 50s to 60s, they used them for various things. One of them was still being used as a garage, but the other buildings were empty. And the building on the far right, as you're looking at them, was an old chow hall, which was no longer in use. But behind that building was a ladder, a metal ladder that you could use to get up onto the roof. And we actually used it all the time because that's where we would set up LPOPs, listening posts, observation posts. We would set up machine guns up there for Overwatch. It was a perfect spot for that stuff. But as we're kind of waiting and talking and stuff, somebody, I'm pretty sure I wasn't the first one to spot it. Somebody spotted a figure up on top of that building, the old Chow Hall building. And it was just a tall, dark figure, completely black. It wasn't immediately strange that it was completely black because there was no light there. And our flight chief was tall, a very dark man. So, like, it didn't set off alarm bells immediately. As a matter of fact, we all assumed that was him, simply because it was such a great place to overwatch everything. So everyone assumed, oh yeah, there's Sergeant Tomlin up there. We called out to him, didn't respond, call out again, no response. And we're like, what's Sergeant Tomlin doing? So I grab a spotlight, like a handheld spotlight, and then I hit it and I'm cranking it up to hit the figure up there. And as the light goes up the wall, like the moment it hits his feet, the figure just disappears. It's just gone. And this happened in front of, see, there was a fire team, patrols. Must have been between 15 and 18 people. And we all saw it. Like every one of us saw it.
Wow.
And then
That is so creepy.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like it was very creepy, like because it is solid black. Yeah, I saw something
Sorry,
similar.
Joshua.
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did anyone have thermal on it at that point, or were
No,
you all looking with the naked eye? Okay. Okay.
no,
Just
it was
wanted
all
to.
naked eye. Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Um, yeah, I did see something similar a few years ago, actually. The show that I worked for sent me to Waverly Hills in Kentucky.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know, it's supposed to be like a very haunted sanitarium back from when tuberculosis was ravaging the nation. Um, and we saw like shadow people, these shadow figures that were milling around in front of the sanitarium at like I don't know 2, 3 in the morning, and I immediately remembered like the figure that I had seen, and I remembered what had happened when I hit it with the spotlight. So I took a laser pointer that I had and I shot the laser pointer because I also wanted to know, like, is these the security guards down there? Because we were on like the third floor looking down,
Mm.
and we were like, is these the security guards? So I shone the laser pointer down there, and it's the same thing. As soon as the laser pointer hit one of the figures, they both disappeared. Um, so like I've told some people when I've talked about this, like I'm not so sure we should be conflating all of this phenomena with like the UAP phenomenon. I don't see any reason why it could be an overlap of two different things.
Right.
But either way, yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it. It is an alarming thing to have happen inside of a nuclear weapons storage depot. Yeah, I don't know.
Did and I want to move back to the UAPs in just a minute here, Joshua. And I know we're going on 55 minutes already. I knew this had
Oh
happened once
wow.
we got going, man. How much time do you have? I don't want to keep you
Oh,
too long.
I'm clear.
You're good. Okay, cool. Because I've got some awesome listener questions for you as well. But in terms of the shadow people, with all of those experiences, did any of them get close to the nuclear bunkers at all, as it were? Like how close would you say that some of these incidents took place near the actual storage areas of these weapons?
We So none that I saw, but we did have patrols call in shadow figures that were literally on the bunkers themselves. Like I
Really?
distinctly remember one time one of my friends called in a shadow figure by so the bunkers are buried, they're covered in dirt, and there's a vent all the way at the top in the back. And I distinctly remember he called in a shadow person, individual by the vent. On the radio, you're not calling in like, oh, there's a shadow ghost or shadow figure. Like,
Yeah.
no, there's an individual. Um, yeah, I distinctly remember. So yes, they would get close. They would be around. Um, there was next to next to our area where we had the nukes. We had we called it was it? Yeah, we called it the WSA, the weapons storage area, which was for conventional munitions. And there was this area that had these big concrete pads, and they would put conventional bombs on there on their way to being shipped over to Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was almost predictable. Like whenever the pads were hot, meaning that there were bombs on the pads, um, the patrol that was in there, because we would have one patrol that was in there because it's conventional. So, no one's going to come in and steal a 500-pound bomb. Like, good luck if you're going to try to do that.
Right.
Um, but whoever was in there, whenever the pads were hot, like there was a good 80% chance that after shift, they'd be talking about like, man, I saw a person out there. I saw this figure out there. And it's always happened like around the pads. But
Weird.
yeah, we definitely saw them get like, I don't think anyone ever saw one directly with a nuke. Um, but like they were on the bunkers and like around the bunkers for sure.
Wow. I sound like I'm amazed and in awe, and that's so cool. But that is so damn alarming at the
Yeah.
same time. Like if you really think about it. Wow. Um, okay, UAP. I gotta talk to you about this crash. Because I know a
Mm,
lot of our audience is gonna want to know about that. Something you did talk about with Ross. But yeah, would you mind telling us about this possible UAP crash that took place? This is fascinating.
yeah. It's baffling.
Hey guys, Ryan Sprague here from Somewhere in the Skies. The podcast has always been and always will be completely free for you to listen to. But creating it every week takes a lot of time, research, and resources. And to be honest, it's just never been free for me to create. That's why we built a few simple ways for you to help support the show and keep it going strong. You can join us over on Patreon or through Apple Premium. Both offer the same awesome perks: ad-free episodes, early access to new content, exclusive bonus shows, and even priority to ask our guests your listener questions. It's a quick and easy way to support what we do for just a few bucks a month. And right now, you can even try Patreon for free for a week to see if it's right for you. To learn more and to join, head over to patreon.com/somewhereskies. That's patreon.com/somewhereskies. Or hit that subscribe button right at the top of your Apple Podcast feed. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting, and as always, keep looking up.
So this would have been about halfway through the time that I was in the area. I was on the fire team. I was on what's called the alert fire team, which basically we hung out inside of this building. And then if there was an incident, we would respond. So there was an alert fire team and then a mobile fire team. And we were outside of the garage, kind of just smoking and joking with another patrol. And the guy in front of me, as we're talking, he sees something over my shoulder and like clearly alarmed. And I turn and look over my shoulder, and there's this, I hate to say it, but like disc-shaped object um flying straight over our heads. And it's like wrapped in like I don't want to say it was flames, but a reddish roiling light all along the front and like half of the craft. And as it got near, what was really strange about it was that sound seemed to deaden. So like it didn't completely kill sound, but it was almost like you're underwater. Like the
Mhm.
sound was very deadened. And the object itself, I don't recall a specific like sound. I think there was like a little bit of a throbbing kind of noise. But it came over our heads and you could tell it was losing altitude. Um, it's really hard to like estimate a good size because at night and you don't have a reference point when you're looking into the sky. So I always hesitate on that, but I got the feeling it was maybe 50 feet across, like that. But the object, you could tell it was losing altitude. I actually was concerned initially it was going to crash inside of the area,
Hmm.
but it came down, and you could see that the back half wasn't wrapped in that roiling reddish light. Um, it went and then it went down behind those bluffs where we would always go to get oversight of everything. And when it dipped down behind them, there was this huge flash of light, like a massive flash of light. Like the way that I hear people describe nuke explosions way back in the day, like you talk to the old timers. Um, just this giant flash of light that lit up the sky. And we all of us braced ourselves because we expected just this massive shockwave.
Yeah.
But nothing. Nothing happened. There was no sound. It was just a flash of light. There was no sound, no nothing. And then like the flash was bright enough that it where we were at, which we would have been when it went down behind the bluffs, we would have been maybe 3/4 of a mile away.
Oh, wow.
And where we were at, it was briefly bright enough that it was kind of like daytime. Like that's how so when I say a bright flashlight, I mean it. But nothing, no sound, no nothing, no flames. We expected, fire, explosion and stuff. But nothing. We called it in, and exterior patrols went expecting to find, a downed aircraft or something. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't find no wreckage, no smoke, no flames. Now, granted, we were limited on the exterior patrols, how far away you could go, because you had to stay close. But it's just not realistic to think that a physical object went down there and didn't leave debris or something. Even if it didn't explode in flames, there would be gouts of dirt, in the
Right.
air. Like it's not realistic that something crashed there and they missed it. Um, yeah, that I mean, that
No,
was
what do you think happened after that? Do you think there was a retrieval team that went out, or did you hear any sirens or any chatter amongst any yeah, what was the aftermath, at least from your vantage point on all this?
nothing.
Nothing. Wow, dude.
Absolutely nothing.
That
Nothing in
mystifies me.
like no anomalous activity. Now, the terrain where it conceivably went down, I could see how you could move a number of personnel out there and us not see it from where we were at. That would
Okay.
definitely be plausible. So I can't discount that like there wasn't some sort of recovery up or something. I just don't know what they would have been recovering because again, there was no evidence of anything and there should have been something.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I don't know. But for us, nothing.
Weird. Now, last question on this one then. Uh, you said it went over the bluffs. Now, was that the same area? Like, how close to where the shadow entity out near the bluffs was the possible area of impact, I guess you would say. Again, I know that's really hard to probably guesstimate, but yeah, were they close
Oof.
together at all?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, given the speed and the descent rate, I would say that if it did impact the ground, it maybe impacted maybe within a quarter mile of the bluffs, like behind the
Okay.
bluffs, um, which would have been about a mile and a half from where we were watching it.
Huh.
Um, yeah, kind of close-ish, I guess.
Strange area, man. You got shadow people and a
Yeah.
down UFO over near those bluffs. Someone's got to get out there. Someone's got to get out there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's actually, I'm curious if, because you can access that. Civilians can access that area,
yeah.
and the actual area is being decommissioned. I'm curious if anybody in Las Vegas has stories from out there, because I know people do go out there. I busted teenagers one time, scared the crap out of them, because they were out there like building the fire and stuff. Yeah, I'd be curious to know if anybody in Las Vegas has stories from out there, because you're right. There seems to be a concentration in that area.
Huh. I'll have to talk to there's a guy out there named George Arnu who, he's known as like the Area 51 guy. He always
Mm.
he went out a couple weeks ago when there was a UAP crash out that way near Groom Lake.
Oh, wow.
I believe it was a drone went down or something, but there
Mm.
was a whole retrieval cleanup and it's a crazy story, man. I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah.
Because then there was tampering with the crash site. They got the FBI had to get involved. It's a whole thing. But I do wonder if George would go out there because he's found stuff out where these possible UAP crashes have occurred out
Oh,
there in
wow.
the different areas. So interesting nonetheless. Okay. The three lights. We got to talk about this one because I know this was a pretty impactful event for you. If you're okay sharing this one
Mm.
with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not my favorite. Um,
Yeah.
there's been some kind of long-term effects that I've been connecting to the incident.
Okay.
Um, so this would have happened closer towards the end of my enlistment. Um, I was on the exterior patrol, and we got a call from someone on the interior that there was a truck on the side of a mountain, kind of, I remember it was due east. Yeah, due east from the perimeter. And that wasn't out of the ordinary because we had civilians that would off road up there and stuff. So that wasn't that crazy. So me and my partner went up on top of the bluffs, again, the bluffs.
Of
And
course.
we could get a really good line of sight from there. And you could see with the naked eye, you could see two lights, two white lights along the side of the mountain. And then when you use the night vision, you could see the way that truck headlights would bounce and illuminate the ground. You could see the lights were doing that. So we assume it was just a truck. We watched them for a few minutes, and then there was an invisible line where we knew, like, okay, if they cross this line, we're going to have to move into an intercept position to make sure that they don't, come closer. And I guess they knew the line too, because right when they got to this invisible line, which it's weird because, like, I don't know how somebody else would know, I don't know. I don't know. But once the lights got to, like, right to where that invisible line in our heads was, they just blinked out. The two lights blinked out. And that immediately alarmed me because that, in my head, that mean, like, what I was thinking was, oh, okay, this is someone in a truck. They turned the lights off because they know we're out here. This is someone with intent, and they're
Mhm.
obviously going to try to get closer. So we didn't have thermal with us out there. So we move towards this position out in the desert, it's about a good 300 meters from the fence line, to where we have complete line of sight across the flat desert, sloping up to the mountain where the lights were last seen at. And it is impossible for you to cross that without us seeing you. Utterly impossible. We got joined by Main Base Canine Patrol. So he came out with his dog because he was exercising the dog nearby. So he's like, "Oh, I'll come. I'll help you guys out." So it's three of us kind of hunching in this little wadi. The dog's with us, and we're just watching. And after a bit, on the inside of the area, our flight chief had dispatch patrols to stand on top of bunkers to where they could kind of get line of sight and kind of overview and help us be overwatch. And they knew roughly where we were at. They couldn't see us, but they knew roughly where we were at because I shown my PAC-4 laser on my weapon back towards them, and you could see it on the night vision. So they knew roughly where we were at. But interior patrol calls over the radio. It's like, "Hey, Oscar 1, be advised, you got a light directly at your 12 o'clock." and they were describing basically a light kind of up in the sky a bit, not too high up. We look at our 12, can't see anything. It's pitch black. Can't hear anything. Look to the dog to see if the dog's indicating. Dog's not indicating. Nothing. So, weird, definitely. We're starting to get a little bit on edge, especially because by now, like, my partner was pretty new. Pretty confident this was his first weirdness experience. But I've been there for years by that point. Even the canine guy who worked on main base, he knew about our reputation up there. So the two of us were kind of getting on edge a little bit already. Shortly after, another patrol calls in, like, "Hey, Oscar 1, you've got a light." It was either our 3 or our 9 o'clock. I can't remember which one. But that alarmed me immediately because now we have a light in front, a light that's flanking us to our side. So I call Security 1, our flight chief, to switch to a clear talk radio channel where we can chat, freely. And ask him, like, "Hey, Sergeant Crawford, are you guys fucking with us? Like, are you, are you messing with us?" And he's like, "No, I could see the lights too. You got one directly in front of you, another one that, popped up either 3 or 9 o'clock. He's like, "No, this is serious. Like, we're not messing with you." Swap back to the regular radio channel, and shortly after, another patrol calls in. Now there's a third light, and this one is opposite the second light. So it was either 3 or 9. At that point, we were basically hemmed in. We had the fence line about 300 meters behind us, light in front, lights on either side. We can't see anything. We can't hear anything. Dog is not indicating. Like, the dog is acting completely normal. I tell my partner, I was like, "Hey, put a round in the chamber, because whatever this is, like, this is showing hostile. In my opinion, this is showing hostile intent." And thinking that these might be vehicles, I told him, I was like, "Put a 203 in the grenade launcher." Within maybe 30 seconds or so, one of the original patrols calls over the radio, panicked. I still remember, panicked. Calls out, "The lights are rushing your position," something like that. So from their point of view, later, as I learn, these 3 lights basically simultaneously rushed straight at our position and then blinked out. From our point of view, they called that over the radio. I grabbed my partner and turned him to look towards our 3 o'clock. K9 guy is already looking towards the 9, and I'm watching the 12. All of us have a round in the chamber. Again, dog is not doing anything. Like, dog is acting completely normal. We sit, I want to say it was a good, like, 10 minutes that we were just sitting, like, not saying anything, just watching. And this is what I have trouble with, because by this point in time, I've been on scene commander for countless exercises, for a few real world events. I was a central security controller. Like, I had enough experience that I knew that when you're in a tactical situation, especially, like at night, or when, you can't see what's really going on, you live and die by the radio. Like, that radio is a lifeline. You rely on that radio for people to tell you what they see, what's going on and stuff. And you're feeding back information constantly. I can't explain why none of us thought to use our radio and to ask for an update, or to radio our own update, nothing. And it's so perplexing to me, because that would have never happened. Like, I would have never gone more than 30 seconds without asking a question or something, especially when something is actively happening to you. And then none of us realized that our radios weren't receiving transmissions. Like, it went from all this radio chatter to no radio chatter, but we didn't acknowledge it. We didn't realize it. And that's so bizarre to me. But after a while, I told the canine guy, I was like, we can't do anything out here. Like whatever's going on, like we can't do anything here. Let's get back to the vehicles. Oh, right before that, sorry. Right before that is when we finally realized like, oh, we're not getting radio transmissions. So I call in the radio check. There's no answer. Partner calls in on his radio, no answer. Canine tries his radio. He tries to contact main base, no answer. And then that's when I tell the canine sergeant, I'm like, we can't do anything out here. Let's get back to the vehicles. Let's reestablish contact. So we get out of the wadi. We're walking back, and when we get to like a certain point, I guess, all three of our radios come back to life, and we start hearing transmissions from inside. Now, what's also peculiar is that the interior patrols, they couldn't actually see us where we were at because the distance was just too great. It was too dark. But they knew our location. However, as we approached the fence line, once we got to within 150 meters of the fence line, we should have been clearly visible. Like they should have been able to see us clear as day. And yet nobody spotted us until right around when the radios came back to life was when you heard patrol on the inside calling in that they had eyes on us. And by
Whoa.
this time, we were almost to our vehicles. So I called in a radio check. My security one, my flight chief, immediately contacted me and told me to in process right away. And when I in process, like the first question he asked me is like, where the fuck were you? Like, where were you?
Yeah.
And I was confused, because he was like pretty agitated. And I was confused because I thought, it'd been like 10 minutes, 10, maybe 15 minutes at most, 10 minutes there and then 5 minutes to the vehicles at most. And he showed me on the radio logs from control how like we had been gone. I think it was like 30 minutes. I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes. We had just been out of touch, like out of contact. And it just, whatever the time was, I can't remember exactly what time, but whatever the time was, it was significantly longer than I thought.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we wrote statements about what happened. I don't know, nothing from my end. Like I didn't see anything happen because of that or anything.
Yeah.
But I think I told Ross this off the air or when we were exchanging emails. This is the part I hate. Months after this, I was with my girlfriend, and we were watching like a UFO thing on TV, and it was talking about like abductions, and they showed like a little recreation, and they showed one of the little gray aliens, I guess, with the big black eyes, and it like it freaked me out. Like it had a very big impact on me to where my girlfriend was like, "Are you okay? Like, what is going on with you?" And then right around that same time frame, we were at Barnes and Noble and happened to walk past Communion, the book, and that face that's on the front of it.
It's right back here. I won't pull it
Is
out,
it?
man. I don't wanna trigger anything.
I hate that face. Like,
Yeah.
not like not like I feel animosity to it. It terrifies me. Like, and
Right.
it's so I've never, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's disturbing that after this I would start getting these feelings anytime, even to this day. Anytime I see like the typical with the big black eyes, it freaks me out. I just went to a haunted house for Halloween, and my friend was joking about like, oh, they're gonna have like an alien part, and you're gonna freak out. And he's right. If they had, I would probably freaked out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the correlation is. Maybe there is none, but yeah, after that was when like that specific image started being very uncomfortable for me to see. I hate it. I hate seeing that image.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I know, that that's not easy for anyone, and it's clear it's affected you, and it could mean nothing or it could mean everything. And I know you're probably still struggling with that, exploring that, and trying to come to terms with certain things. What's real, what's not real. Like, that's
Yeah.
the struggle with being a witness or experiencer to any of these phenomena. So, I mean, man, I feel for you. I do, especially when you
Thanks.
had like missing time during that last experience
Yeah.
there, as it were. Um, yeah, wow, dude, that's a lot. That's a lot on your shoulders. So I commend you and thank you for sharing
Mm.
that part. Um,
Thanks for
uh,
listening.
oh God, my absolute honor. Well, I've got maybe one or two last questions for you, and then I'll
Mhm.
breeze through the listener ones for you. I do
Sure.
not want to take up too much of your valuable time, but now you left. When did you leave service, if I may ask?
April 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all of these experiences, I did not even ask you this, and I apologize. What years were all of your Nellis 2 experiences?
2002, I think like October 2002 was when I got to Area 2. So 2002 to 2008.
Okay, gotcha. So you left in 2008. Now, I know some reports were filed, like you had mentioned, and everything, but then you don't know what happens after that. But you did talk to Ross about, you did eventually speak to somebody about some of these
Hmm.
experiences. Is that something you can share with us where you did report some of these things to?
Yeah, I talked with Robert Hastings actually.
Okay.
I can't remember what made me reach out to him. He must have popped up somewhere, and he was talking about UFOs and nuke. I know that I reached out to him specifically because he had knowledge of UFOs and nukes. I just can't remember what led me to, like, what was the, I don't know.
Hmm.
But I did reach out to him and I shared, and man, he's got such a better record of all, because these are like 20 years old for me at this point. So he's got such a better, more accurate record of everything. And I know I shared with them, like I took screenshots of like Google Maps, and I shared with them the exact locations where things happen and stuff. But I I did have a few people who were kind of like, maybe you shouldn't be talking, and all this. And I hate that. Like I really regret that I cut off communications with them. I really do. It was rude. I really hate that. It was rude of me. But I also hate it because like I allowed myself by the culture to be intimidated into not talking about this. And I hate the thought that like maybe if I had spoken up sooner, maybe there's someone out there who like, would have felt like, oh, I'm not the only person that experienced something like this. Or it's like I said at the start, like for me, it's not about disclosure, it's about people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, man, nobody can blame you. I mean, it's a culture of secrecy, especially with this sort of work that you did, and credibility and reputation. And it's taken all these military witnesses dozens of years to finally come forward. Like,
True.
it's crazy. And it doesn't matter when you do it, it's the fact that you did it. And we thank you for that, because that will again empower the next witness and the next and the next. And then that's when you really can, like, I'm already thinking of people that I would love to put you in touch with who were on nuclear installations that had
Mm.
similar experiences. And yeah, I think the most important thing is that you're doing it now. And it's never too late to like get back into communication with certain people. If you had the opportunity to like testify before Congress like some of these other people did, would you consider doing something like that, or do you think the protections aren't there yet for these quote unquote whistleblowers? Like, have you ever thought about that?
I actually just had this conversation with a veteran friend of mine. Because he had some experience. He was in the army. He had some experiences when he was in Iraq. Um, and we were talking about this. Like he actually asked me the exact same thing you just asked me. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I'd have no problem like testifying. And the reason I'd have no problem testifying is because nothing that I've shared was like under an NDA or anything like that. And he asked me like, well, what if you like had something that was definitive proof or something, but it was under an NDA. And we both kind of chatted about it, and we're like, we couldn't, like, we did take an oath that does mean something, and we couldn't just break it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I would. I would, in the hopes that like other people would be encouraged to kind of
Yeah.
speak up, and we could start changing this ridicule culture, and show people like, no, there's credibility to this phenomenon. Like, we're not all crazy. We're not all liars. It's impossible at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the numbers speak for itself, man. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you're making an impact today having this conversation with me. So I truly do appreciate it. I've got some listener questions for you, if
Okay.
you don't mind. Cool, 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 cool. Yeah, we a lot of people saw your interview. They were super excited when I announced that we were going to have you on the show. So our Patreon subscribers actually get priority to ask
Mhm.
us guest questions, so they go right to the front. VIPs, baby. So we've got Lissa H on Patreon. She wants to know, after witnessing all of these things, Joshua, how do you separate what's paranormal from what might be classified technology? And has your definition of reality changed since leaving the military? Kind of a two-pronged question there.
That is an amazing question.
Yeah, good. That's a good one. I wish I asked it.
That is Lisa. Lisa, right?
Lissa.
Lisa. That is an amazing question. I have had so many debates about this with close friends and people who have experienced things. Um, Let me think for a moment.
Yeah.
So, like I told you earlier, I had that suspicion for a while. What if some of these things we're experiencing are just images being projected? You know, maybe by our own people. I mean, the military has a long history of testing things on its own people, and who better to test something to deceive the senses than on people guarding nukes?
Mhm.
Um, so I can't say. I can't even say that what I experienced was UAP as defined by other witnesses that have, maybe like Lieutenant Commander David Freyer, almost certainly witnessed a technological object. The only thing I can say is, when we had the two individuals who were observing us doing security operations, they were biological and they were real because they left behind a thermal signature on the desert, and they were picked up on thermals. So those were real. Now, what were they or who were they? No clue. Um, the object that seemed to crash, I'm extremely confident was a real technological object, um, simply because of the effect on the environment and that slight throbbing sound, um,
Mm.
which I actually have heard after, actually recently. Um, yeah, I actually heard that exact same sound almost a year ago. Um, I'm pretty confident that was a technological object. Um, but yeah, everything else I don't know. Now, as far as like how has my perception of reality changed, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a pretty naturalistic worldview, like most people, just because of our education. Um, that has changed dramatically, honestly, since I had my own experiences, since I left the military, since I looked more into this topic. Um, I'm extremely convinced that the way that we perceive the world is not the full picture. There's all this talk of like a mind connection to the UAP phenomenon. I
Mhm.
suspect that that's probably true. Um, there's these groups attempting to interact with UAP using, I guess, psionics and stuff. Just from reading on the phenomenon, I actually wonder if maybe the entire point of this isn't to train us to think differently. I see a pattern where, like, it seems like the phenomenon shows itself enough to make us curious, but not to satisfy that curiosity.
Mm.
Um, I don't think it's a coincidence that like the Phoenix Lights incident, for instance, hasn't repeated itself. And it took place at a time where people didn't have high definition cameras in their phone.
Right.
So why hasn't something like that repeated itself when people do have high definition cameras in their pocket? I almost feel like it's like trying to make us curious without giving itself fully away, so that we kind of change the way that we think about not just the phenomenon, but everything. I just have a feeling the universe is a lot stranger than we think it is, and we're
Yeah.
not configured to really accept that strangeness. Fantastic question.
Yeah, no, fantastic answer, man. I mean, I always tell people UFOs, and I guess if you want to lump aliens in with UFOs, I try to keep them separate.
Hmm.
Um, they are a mirror on ourselves. They say more
Hmm.
about humanity than I think the
Yeah.
actual phenomena themselves. So yeah, it is fascinating. Cool, cool. I love that. Okay, Thomas R on Patreon asks, really enjoyed your interview with Ross Coulthart. If you set aside the language of entities, he puts in parentheses, what feeling did these shadow figures convey to you? Were they curious, hostile, observing, or
Hmm.
something more symbolic, like manifestations tied to the site's energy or to human fear itself? Wow, that's a big question. But yeah, what
Hmm.
I guess what did these entities sort of convey to you, if anything, through their movements or what you felt
Hmm.
when you were experiencing them, if anything?
Um, I'm putting myself back there in
Yeah.
those shoes. I can't say that like I got a feeling directly from it their behavior, from what I saw and what other people saw. Um, it seems perplexingly tricksterish. Um, like it didn't feel like overtly hostile. It didn't feel, if these are real physical entities that have an agenda, whatever that agenda is, doesn't feel like it's outright hostile. It almost feels tricksterish,
Mm.
maybe playful-ish, Um, yeah, it never felt. I mean, like the figure that I talked with Ross about, where me and my partner were watching it run back and forth between these two buildings. Maybe I didn't translate well enough how fast this thing was moving, but it was moving very fast. And it was moving fast enough that, like, if it wanted to do something hostile to us, I'm pretty confident it could have been on us, before we could get like some accurate shots off on it. So it just, and like, why do that? Why run back and forth between
Right.
two buildings? It just, yeah. So either they're either they have an agenda that is, no pun intended, so alien to us that we can't comprehend. I'm sure animals watch us do things and they're like, what are they doing? Which, could be a case with a super intelligence. You never know.
Yeah.
Either that or it's just tricksterish. Yeah, I don't know.
I like that.
Um,
These things, they're like displays, man. It's like a
yeah,
performance piece
yeah, yeah, yeah,
almost, like being played out before you. For what reason, we may never know, but like that's kind of the beauty of art. Like you
yeah,
interpret it different ways. I don't know why this person is doing this weird, performance piece, or I
yeah,
don't know what
yeah,
modern yeah, like dude, I've been to so many modern dance shows, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on
yeah,
right now,
yeah.
but it means something to that person next to me, and it means something else to
Exactly.
that. So who knows? Who knows?
I
And it's
wondered
going to
if
mean
like,
something different to the person doing it, I guess, is my
mhm,
point too. Yeah. Sorry. What were
I
you going to say?
wondered sometimes like if we went on like an alien prank show and like there's this TV for them, like I don't know.
Absolutely, dude. It totally could be. It could be. Oh, here's a fun one. Okay. Um, Jake on Twitter asks, what do you make of the whole Area 51 mythology and Bob
Mm,
Lazar and crashed 9 flying saucers being reverse engineered at Site 4 out there at Area 51. Like, were these things ever talked about when you went to Area 2? And what do you personally think of all of this Bob Lazar sort of Area 51 mythos that we now know about?
Um, I had a flight chief who, before he came to us, he was working at another area. Um, he he couldn't name it. It was out in the desert, but he told us one story to where a civilian Cessna was having engine troubles, and I guess where he was working at was they had like a nice flat kind of landing area. Um, he didn't specifically call it like a landing strip, but it was the way that he described it was like a camouflage kind of landing strip, I guess. And apparently, the facility, whoever was in charge of the facility, they were debating because this Cessna was going to go down and they were nowhere near a civilian airport. So they were debating, like, do we turn on the lights and allow them to land? Save their lives, basically. So they made the decision to go ahead and turn on the lights temporarily, enough for the Cessna to get a fix, come in and land. And according to him, the Cessna landed, and him and the rest of the security personnel went out, grabbed the father. There was a father and like a teenage daughter. They grabbed them, blindfolded them, handcuffed them, took them away. He says he doesn't know what happened to them after, like, he handed them off to another security team. And then base engineers came out and they dismantled that Cessna like nuts and bolts. Like, they took it completely apart, which obviously they're looking for intelligence devices, like they're looking for eavesdropping devices because, this could be an intelligence op. You don't know.
Yeah.
So the reason I share that story is to say that, like, security is taken incredibly seriously at these facilities. So some elements of what I've heard of the mythos of Area 51 rings true to me. As far as like the phenomenon, its relation to Area 51, we did used to get DOE transports that would be coming from Groom Lake. They would always be either in like these giant boxes on semis, so you couldn't see. Like, I remember one was actually oversized. It was huge, this huge oversized box on a semi. Other times they'd be covered in like tarps and stuff, so you could never see. And they would have their own security for it. The most that we would do is if they didn't go into their designated bunkers, we would overwatch from a distance. Sometimes they would park in this like giant parking lot, and we would overwatch from a distance. But we weren't allowed to like get close to them and stuff. We did hear rumors, like, anybody would hear rumors, but nothing even remotely verifiable or anything. The Lazar thing, I've heard his story, and I've educated myself on his story in recent years. I did have one sticking point with Lazar's story. I know that he describes at one point how he was, I believe he says he was shown or he saw like a binder or something, and it was talking about different things and something about how like religion was invented by these aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck out to me because from the way that I know security operations work, if your job is to work on a specific part, or like a specific part of a UFO, let's say, that's all you're going to have access to. And Lazar says the same thing. So the reason why that stood out to me is, why would he have access to this information about religion and aliens? Like, how would that be relevant to what the duties he's performing? I can't see any security program being run in a way to where you're going to have access to any information that is not, like, that's the whole point of compartmentalization,
Right.
So certainly not saying that he's lying or anything. I mean, who knows? Maybe they were lax, with these matters, but then I also wonder, like, could it have been a plant, Maybe it was
Right.
planted like to make him seem less credible in case he did leak information, you know. If I was in charge of running a highly compartmentalized program studying UFO craft, I guarantee you that I would feed false information to people working on individual parts so that if they decided to be whistleblowers, they'd be less credible, you know, or they'd be
Good
giving out
point.
false information to my adversaries and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that stood out to me. Um, yeah, I'm glad you asked because I've had that thought for a while now about that like binder that he said he saw and how it kind of
Yeah.
clashes with compartmentalization.
It's
Um,
weird, man. You make such a good point though. Like the best way I get like everything he says could be true. Maybe he was working on a craft and reverse engineering it or trying to understand the propulsion, whatever. But then yeah, you feed these tiny little
mhm.
falsehoods. So if he ever does come forward, yeah, he's gonna sound crazy. Like
Yeah,
a binder of aliens and religion. Like, what is this dude talking about? Come on.
yeah,
It makes
yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah, yeah. Wow, I never even thought about that. Like it could all be true, but
Hmm.
then when he comes forward and starts sprinkling these really out there things, it's gonna completely discredit everything he
Yeah,
says. So, yep,
yeah.
good point. Very good point.
Mhm.
Um, okay. I have one last question and then I want to give you the floor. But has this I we talked off air. You're an artist.
Mhm.
Um, has this impacted or influenced any of your art moving forward? All of these different weird experiences in your life? I mean, maybe even subconsciously. We never know, right?
Yeah,
Like what we're
yeah.
truly inspired by this divine inspiration, I guess, as it were. But
Mm.
yeah, do you feel like any of this sort of stuff that's happened in your life has in altering your reality has affected your art in any way? I always love asking creative people that.
um, I guess if it's some subconscious, I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
Um,
good point.
the one thing that we did talk about, which I think the audience would like to hear about, is the sci-fi thing.
Yes.
I was considering because when you had reached out, you had asked me this question. And so I was thinking about like, you know, if this phenomena is all true, like how does it affect art and stuff? And the one thing I kept thinking about was like if what people say about UAPs, UFOs is real, like the general dialogue is true, I was like, this is gonna ruin science fiction because, like, you know, you got Starship Troopers, Star Wars, like you have this big epic, you know, Warhammer 40K. Like we love our big epic, you know, battles in space and stuff. And it's so obvious that if this phenomenon is real, none of that is happening. Like absolutely none of that is going to ever happen. And I was just like, man, it's gonna ruin science fiction if like tomorrow, like the president comes out and is like, this is all true, this is all real. It's like, ah, crap, now we gotta come up with like brand new science fiction.
Yeah.
So as far as like affecting my art, I, I don't think so. But what I have found that like I kind of care more about people. Um Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe when you start considering the magnitude of like what happened and the implications, um, it kind of makes you think like, man, people matter. Like, I don't know if there really is a super intelligence watching the earth, is like, man, we're kind of embarrassing. Like, we're kind of an embarrassing species, the way we treat each other and stuff. So like it's really made an impact on me as far as like really want to start treating people better. And it's interesting you brought up the thing about like perception and people changing like people have a UAP encounter and then they do music now or whatever. And it's interesting that there's like this correlation also with near death experiences because I've
Mm,
studied those extensively. I've written on them a lot for my old show. And like there seems to be some similarities between the two in certain regards, but yeah, I'm starting to believe more and more that this whole thing really is about consciousness. Like maybe there is a biological actor, a biological agent behind the phenomenon. Maybe it is an alien species or multiples, or maybe, but I think that this whole thing is kind of really speaking to consciousness and how important it is that we change the way we think and expand like um, our own mind, our own sense of mind.
I love that. UFOs are a kick in the ass, man.
Yeah.
It does. It expands your mind. It shifts your paradigm. I had a sighting when I was 12 years old that
Mm.
ultimately changed the entire course of my life. Look at me doing a freaking
Yeah.
UFO podcast.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was going to be like a pro baseball player, and now here I am. But you know what, man? Like I don't regret a single moment of it.
Mm.
It's afforded me over 450 episodes now of having
Wow.
conversations like this with you, and it's changed my life, this entire topic, and I love it. It's frustrating never
Hmm.
getting the
Mm.
answers, but you know what, like I came to the conclusion for myself personally that I'm probably never going to get those answers. I'm never going to know what I
Hmm.
saw when I was 12 years old, with my father actually. Like we're never going to know what it was, and that's okay. Like it's what you do with it and moving forward with it, and I love chasing that mystery, and I
Hmm.
feel like, it's fueled me to, like you said, look at people a different way and realize, like, there's more to this universe, this
Hmm.
reality as we know it. Man, we could go in so many different ways with the consciousness thing. We'll have to have you back to kind of explore that, Joshua. Um, but yeah, dude, this has been incredible. I kept you over an hour longer than I told you, so I wanna
Oh,
thank
wow.
you for
Yeah.
that,
No worries.
for doing that. But my last kind of closing thing for you here is, we do have a lot of military people, current and former, who listen to this show. I get emails all the time. Actually, one 15 minutes before I went on air with you of a Navy
Wow.
guy who I'm gonna be speaking to about something. But if someone from the government or from the military is listening or watching this right now, um, what would you say to them? Like, what do you most want them and everyone to remember about your story and your experiences and what this all means? Like, is there any last parting words you want to give to everyone out there?
Yeah. Um,
Put you on the spot. I apologize.
I guess the first thing I'd say, just because of my security background, would be, hey, our adversaries are always working against us. So, like, report. Like, don't sit on something because it might be something prosaic. It might be a foreign adversary preying on an awareness of the UFO phenomenon and our own, hesitation to speak up about it, to do some real intelligence collection. So report it. Second thing I'd say is, and I'd say it to non-military, I'd say it to everybody, like, talk about what you experience. Like, stand up for it, stand up for yourself, stand up for your experience. And yeah, you might face ridicule culture, but if you educate yourself on the phenomenon, educate yourself on the history of it. 1957 RB-47 electronic warfare aircraft trailed by a UFO for hundreds of miles. 3 out of 4 of the electronic warfare instruments picked up a signal that this craft was emitting that they thought was radar, but if it was a human radar, it would have been the size of a football field and airborne. And the EW equipment confirmed that what the crew citing, that it did a 180-degree turn around the aircraft. Ground radar confirmed the crew's sightings of this UFO, including impossible physics that it displayed. Like, this is real data that is out there. Like, inform yourself on real data that exists, like these stellar cases that you cannot just write away. And once you do and you start speaking knowledgeably on like things that can be like things we have data on that can't just be easily, explained away, you start being credible and people start sort of blanching in their way that they might try to attack you with ridicule culture. It's tough though. Like, I get it. It's tough. I would say just stand up for your experience, stand up for yourself, stand up for friends and family and strangers that have had experiences. If there really is a conspiracy to silence away this whole phenomena, and I would say that there's evidence that points that is true, then the best way to defeat this conspiracy is to speak up, and to be brave enough to speak up and encourage others to speak up. If you're interested in disclosure, I think that it begins with changing the cultural narrative.
Love that, man. I love that. Oh, I could not think of a better way to conclude this, man. If people wanted to reach out to you, other former military or anything, is there somewhere they can find you, or are you more of a private person? I don't want to, you know, give that away if not.
uh, yeah, I guess you could find me on Instagram. It's just at YOSHS.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I post pretty much just pictures of my dogs, but you're
I
welcome
saw
to
one
reach
of
out
them
on there.
joining us tonight. If you're
Yeah,
watching this on YouTube, that was awesome.
yeah, I caught him out of the corner of my eye.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, feel free to reach out on there, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put a link in the show note as well for that. But this was so inspiring, man. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share all of that with us. Thank you for your service, obviously, as well. And I really think people are going to get a lot out of this. So, yes, Joshua, thank you so much for joining us today on Somewhere in the Skies.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Somewhere in the Skies is part of the Somewhere podcast universe. Please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. To learn more about all of our shows, visit thespu.com.
Spectrovision Radio.